Now, I appreciate you checking out this video. Before I continue, I want you to go to theultimatejetguide.com, where I've put together a full guide for jet buyers like yourself. A lot of people are coming to me and, hey, Tom, like I want to put, my plane on a charter certificate. From the owner's perspective, what are some things that they should look for in the operator, or what are some things that they want to ask or just be mindful of when they're handing their jet over to another company, a management company or a charter company? They're handing this asset over. What are some advice that you would give to that person?
So for this one, I'm going to sidestep the regulatory piece because I would hope that would be top of anybody's list, no matter what you're doing. Am I handing it to someone who is properly abiding by regulations? And this goes back to, as we've discussed this whole time, knowledge, knowing the regulations, knowing what looks wrong. Excuse me. So I would say,
are you speaking of like the 134.5 operators? Is that what you're talking about?
no, I would never do that. No, I mean, it's.
But making sure they have the right certificates to be running a charter operation.
Are you doing? NADA's website all have for years has had a big block on there. Avoid illegal charter, and this is a big issue in our industry. So going with a reputable charter company who has stood the test of time, not that they've just had a certificate for the past 45 minutes and you're hoping for the best just because it's the least stress and biggest turnover for your income. It should not be solely income driven. This should be doing your research and properly doing your research. So I would say, number one, their involvement in the operation. When you hand your jet over for charter operations, how involved is that company in the operation? In the care and feeding of the crew that's going to be operating it, in the maintenance of the aircraft? I'm sure there's multiple different plans for actually putting your aircraft into charter, but how well is it going to be maintained? You can almost compare it to an Airbnb rental. Those Airbnb operators who are solely invested in it. They have professional cleaning companies. They have great communication back and forth, and they're really taking the care and feeding of their customer as they're bringing it on board. Same thing with your aircraft. Make sure you almost feel cared for as you're discussing it with the company. Next up would be their knowledge and understanding of the aircraft, a broad knowledge of the regulations to know right from wrong. Do they understand this aircraft? Are you handing it over to them and this is the first time they've ever seen one and they're, oh my gosh, it has engines on it? No, they should have a thorough understanding of it. And then proper support. Knowledge of the aircraft also comes with proper support. Are you able to not only, charter my aircraft, are you able to support it in flight? If it lands in, some grass strip airfield out in the middle of nowhere for some reason, are they able to actually maintain it properly and get it back up in the air? And I would say the last one, and I can't say this enough, and we've already mentioned it a few times, but the value of your investment. This is not just an asset, but it's, the value of proper maintenance from reputable companies, the value of technology to streamline it. You really need to understand the value of what is actually being held in this aircraft. It's not just your upfront charge. It is a continual legacy. And if, like you said, you're working with 1980s and 1990s aircraft, there's a reason there's most cars are not that old on the road, but a lot of aircraft are. They are maintained properly as a very great asset to have in your portfolio.
Ooh, I'm going to use that line. No, I think that's fantastic because a lot of people don't consider all that goes into it. I mean, real estate's pretty much, everyone understands it because y'all live in a house. You're probably a homeowner. You probably have your bills. You kind of know what goes into owning a house. Plus, obviously it's a stationary asset and it's been around for a while. But when it comes to private aviation, like most people getting into it, at least a lot of the calls I'm getting, they don't own a plane already. They're investors, they're backseat kind of guys right now. And you don't know what you don't know. And to your point, like how important the maintenance over the years, you've got these things called logbooks, you've got pilots, you've got mechanics, you've got line guys, you've got paint shops, you've got brokers, operators, maintenance management companies. I mean, there's just such a wide breadth of information to be aware of. And I appreciate you pointing all that out to us because it really shows how important it is to have a trusted, team when you're looking to make this purchase.
Exactly. If you truly wanted to compare it to your home, imagine that everything in your home that beeps, moves, has a light on it, has its own dedicated team that needs to support that, or at least somebody with knowledge of how that works, or at least a phone number in your back pocket that you can call when it's not working. That's what an aircraft takes. I mean, just because you're an aircraft mechanic does not mean you can overhaul an engine. That's another team. Just because you
Hmm.
are an AMT doesn't mean you can overhaul landing gear. That's a completely separate team. You need to understand that every moving component on that aircraft is probably relied upon by a completely separate team. There are so many people involved in the operation of just one flight. And I think you really need to understand that prior to getting into it. Or, once again, start small. You don't need to jump in the owner's seat just to be involved in private travel. Start with the charters, start with fractional ownership, and work your way up to your own.
Yeah, I love it. I mean, you're such great things. I think a lot of people also, to your point with every component needing different teams. A lot of people don't understand that. Like, yeah, Cessna made a citation, but the engines, that's a different company. That's Pratt and Whitney. The avionics, like that's a different company. Like, so when something goes wrong, like it's not like you call up Textron. And just be like, "Hey, my plane's broken." Like, no, you have, like you said, different teams and even different companies that are involved within the creation of that one asset that you're looking at. That's great.